Welcome back to the Lukin Center YouTube channel. And today we get to continue the conversation with Jessica about group. But unlike our first conversation, which was just kind of high level in terms of what you can expect, today we really want to jump in and talk about, how the actual dynamics could potentially look like. So basically a continuation of our conversation that we started last time. So I guess my first question is, thinking back about what we started to talk about, one would imagine that there are different types of groups, meaning some people that could stay consistently in one group. And one would also imagine where people can just, I guess, come and go as they please. Just one thing that comes to mind would be, obviously very different from what we're talking about, but let's say even AA, somebody that most people know, right? Yeah. AA is something like it's always there.
Yep.
People show up when and if they can. There's no such thing as like screening. They just show up and It's always there. So I'm wondering, that's one that I'm familiar with. But I'm wondering if there's other groups that are similar to it or maybe completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we would call an open group would be AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And then AA also has its counterpoint of NA, which is Narcotics Anonymous. They kind of separate those when we were talking about homogeneity. Some people felt that alcoholism was a little bit different than other types of drug use. So they even had that separation. And then even beyond that, another type of open group might be Al-Anon or Nar-Anon, which sometimes people don't know too much about. But the fabulous thing about those groups, also open, and similarly, people can come and go as they please. Those are for the family members of people who are struggling with addiction. So they get to learn about how to help their family members who are going through it at the same time while the person who has the addiction themselves is also getting the help that they need. So that would be an open group, right? People can come and go. There's a lot of permeability. And there's also not group leaders. When we think about AA, we know that people might go up and speak and they're kind of the leaders. There's like this peer-to-peer model that's happening. You're learning from other people and their experiences and hopefully taking the message home there. So what we would see on the other side would be a closed group. So that's something that you might see more at a therapy practice like our own.
Okay.
And so a closed group, what happens is that screening process that we talked about, right? Somebody calls and says, hey, this is what's going on. Would I be a fit for the type of group that you have here? Maybe the DBT informed group. And we'd say, yes, actually, you would be a great fit. Let's get you in. It's 12 weeks. There's maybe an 8-person cap in this group. We can usually run the group between 6 and 8 participants. And we expect that you're showing up to every session for those 12 weeks. Because the importance of having every group member there every week, right? We're really working with each other. And usually we're trying to, use that feedback with each other. And so just having that consistency is really important. So the closed group, not everybody can just show up. They have to be pre-screened and they have to be a group member.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there a typical flow? If we focus on the closed group, is there a typical flow, how sessions happen within the session and maybe across sessions?
Yeah. So usually what you'll see, every therapist is different. Every co-leaders are different. But what I can say is if, say, we're doing a DBT informed group here, what it might look like is the flow would be that we'd usually start off with one of the components of DBT, which is mindfulness. And so the importance of mindfulness, which you guys are going to learn about in the next video when you get to see how a DBT group might work. The importance of mindfulness is being able to just ground ourselves and get ready and prepared to get into the group. So we might do an activity where you would work on a mindfulness moment.
Okay.
So usually to do that, we would, maybe tap into our 5 senses and you would, maybe do this grounding exercise called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, where you notice 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you feel, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you touch or taste rather. Sorry. And so with that, we would do the mindfulness exercise and get ourselves grounded. And then there's 3 other pillars of DBT that we might talk about. So we have interpersonal effectiveness.
Okay.
We have distress tolerance.
Okay.
And we have,
emotional regulation.
Thank you. So we have these pillars of DBT that we're going to work on these skills in the group, but we're not going to do them all at once. So across sessions, what we might do is we might focus more on mindfulness in one session because that is one of the pillars, but we might also start with that and do another pillar.
Gotcha.
And then across groups, we're going to choose one each week, and we might do a different skill more than once.
Okay, so then you get to learn a little bit, it sounds like, about something new that you may not know, and also practice it.
Exactly.
Ah, okay. And then the participants also could give each other feedback.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So say we're working on an emotional regulation skill, you guys, as group members, you might learn about it. So myself as a leader or the co-leader, we might kind of do a little bit of a lesson.
Okay.
So, I hope it doesn't feel like school, but it's important lessons that we learn that we usually don't get to learn about in school.
Sure.
So we do a little what we call psychoeducation, right? We're teaching you about something within the realm of psychology and how it can be helpful for you to work on whatever skill it is that we're working on. So if we're working on emotional regulation, maybe we're just working on identifying emotions, how many different words we can come up for emotions that day, and every group member's kind of jumping in and being able to participate. And maybe we have a big whiteboard where we're writing them down.
Okay.
And then we're going to work on that skill a little bit more. We're going to usually do an activity. We're going to practice this. We're going to put it into practice. So I'm going to give everybody the opportunity to practice the skill of emotional regulation. So maybe we're talking about our emotions and being able to really break down what our emotions look like in terms of our behavior, right? We're taking it the next step.
Okay.
And so then maybe within that, after we work on the skill, then maybe peers are giving feedback. Oh, hey, I didn't think about it like that. Or maybe that sounds really tough that you experienced that emotion and you responded that way. Have you ever thought about responding this way? It's worked for me. So you kind of get that process a little bit too at the same time.
That's very informative. I could see how that could be helpful on so many different levels. One thing that comes to mind, and I know a couple of people, that call in, when they even consider group, they think that it's only talking, and I guess they're referring to more of a process group.
Right.
For a lot of people, this idea that you learn something and then you put it into practice and then you can take it home, I think is an effective strategy that I think some people might confuse it with only process group, which hopefully the one that we're starting really isn't like that.
Right. We might have moments of process, right? So where we're able to really break things down like we were talking about before and really process within the group members.
Right.
But yeah, usually people do think about process group, and that can, when we think about that, like Irvin Yalom, right? We know in the field he's like the godfather of group therapy, and his groups were process. You're sitting down and you're just talking about whatever it is, and you're kind of letting that group play out and everybody feed off of each other. So while that allows for it in the groups that we might do here, we're also really honing in on these skills and putting them into practice. And you get to do it in a very controlled environment that you don't get to do outside of a group setting usually.
Right. And especially this idea of a closed kind of membership group, if you will, that you have the same. I can even envision how empowering that could be. You have the same people showing up every time, every week, learning something new, putting into practice, learning about each other, and giving feedback.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for joining. For you guys out there, hopefully this was helpful, and this general idea about the distinctions between different groups, especially the ones that are called closed group or DBT informed groups, are typically groups where you learn something, you actually get to practice it in session, and also give feedback to the other members. And next month, we would have an actual demo of how a group could potentially look like. Again, thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, if you like what you just saw, please feel free to check out our videos in our library and also hit the subscribe button so you can check out our future videos.